Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by award-winning artist Beyonce, accompanied by the U.S. Marine Band. Following the national anthem, please remain at your place while the presidential party exits the platform.
Day for the performers to bring it, and they brought it today. Kelly Clarkson, Beyonce. Back with her husband, Jay-Z. At one point, she flung that monitor out of her ear and needed to break free. Savannah Guthrie, we haven't gotten to you yet on this day so far.
I don't know about you. I'm always so relieved when they hit it out of the park. That is a hard song to sing. And as Senator Alexander said a little bit earlier this morning, this is an enduring and conspicuous sign of our democracy, something that we do very well, either the transfer of power peacefully or, in this case, the reaffirmation of power. We had poetry, we had song, and I think in the president's inaugural speech we had a little bit of poetry and prose. He rooted the speech in history, harkening back to that 1776 Declaration of Independence nation, that all men are created equal, and then turned into a speech that had more policy in it than I suppose I expected. In some ways, it seems the president wanted to vindicate his political view of the world, whether it be on an issue like climate change or entitlements. He seemed to hit every Democratic constituency, every member of this political coalition that he put together to win re-election. An interesting speech, and one not too long, I think, by inaugural standards.
The Associated Press lead often gets to be the first draft of history, and Julie Pace of the AP writes her lead this way: asserting America's possibilities are limitless, President Barack Obama declared on Monday that a decade of war is ending and the nation's economy is recovering, as he launched into a second term before a flag-waving crowd of hundreds of thousands on the National Mall. Doris Kearns Goodwin, will it be said that this speech, among the shortest of the modern era, was State of the Union-like?
Well, I think in spirit it was State of the Union-like, if not in substance. But what really interested me, if people expected him to contract his ambitions because of the troubles of the last 4 years, this was a wildly ambitious speech. I mean, what it was a powerful defense of collective action, of government in a certain sense. He talked about government having done infrastructure, railroads and highways, caring for the vulnerable and the poor and education. And then you saw that the campaign rhetoric about the few and the many was not just campaign rhetoric. He tied it to the idea of America, that when we replaced the king, we didn't replace that tyranny with the privileges for the few. And he again went through his campaign theme about we have to do it together, not on the backs of the few. So I think he was calling on citizens on that coalition, as you're suggesting, Savannah, to act, to come forward. And he was defending government. What is collective action but government? He's defending government in our time. He acknowledged that maybe it's got its problems and it's worn out, but essentially it was telling citizens, I need your voice, I need your action if we're going to get things. And he talked about immigration, a whole paragraph on climate reform, things that people didn't expect, but it was sort of the journey that's not finished rather than a policy-wonking thing. So I think it's really the agenda for the next term and the awareness that he won't get it done from inside. He needs these characters outside to come be part of the process.
I'm very happy to have Tom Brokaw with us. And Tom, the president hit on a topic you hit on in just the last 48 hours, and that is engineering students in this country vis-a-vis immigration.
Well, when they get here and get an education, and then they have to go home because they can't get a visa to stay, and he put that in there. That's a very specific policy issue. I actually thought the speech was couched in plain language, but it had its own kind of eloquence as a result of that. This nation has been through a great deal of trauma for the past 12 years, not just the last 4 years. We've been through wars and terrorism and economic collapse at the highest levels of our country. People have lost their jobs, and they have lost a piece of the American dream. And the president tried to address that. He also did something at the very end, which I thought was extremely important. This is going to be, I'm told, part one of a two-part speech. This is the State of the Union speech that is coming up when he goes before a joint session of Congress, and then he'll lay out in greater detail. Then we're told he's going to go around the country. Here's how he concluded his speech. You and I, as citizens, have the power to set the country's course. You and I, as citizens, have the obligation to shape the debates of our time, not only with the votes we cast, but with the voices we lift in defense of our most ancient values and enduring ideals. And what he's saying, don't leave this to the bloggers and to the special interests. Everyone has to get involved this time.
And David Gregory, so many people have said, keep the campaign energy going in his camp and take this out on the road.
Well, and Doris referred to that as well. You know, I think what we've learned about this president in the past 4 years, his outside game is better than his inside game. His inside game was run when it really mattered by his vice president. His outside game and that idea of the perpetual campaign is something that he's quite good at. I think there was a note of pragmatism here as well. I think he would like to triumph in this debate about the role of government, and he staunchly defended the role of Medicare and Social Security and that shot across the bow to Mitt Romney saying folks who rely on that are not just takers. We can make modifications to them, but he's going to stand by these programs. But he made an allusion to the fact we're not going to settle these debates over about the role of government, but we have to take some action now. So that's a nod toward some room for compromise on his part, and how often he talked about collective action, seizing the moment together. He's going to try. That's what a second-term president who just won has still got to do. He's got to try.
And as the strange bedfellows that inaugurations are made, we just had the number 3 Republican in the House taking an iPhone picture of Beyonce and Jay-Z with the podium in the background as this becomes a nice and big kind of gathering up on the podium. Lester Holt is on the west front of the Capitol. Lester, anything we couldn't see or sense in the TV coverage that was obvious from your location?
Well, I think some of the biggest applauses I could hear from down near the platform itself were responses to when the president talked about equality for women, for our daughters and our wives. That got some demonstrations not only here in the crowd, but some of the female lawmakers gathered there on the platform seemed to respond to that. The president seemed to draw energy from the crowd, looking out up the mall at the tens of thousands of people staring back at him. There's a delay, something you don't see on the TV. The sound system delays as you get farther away. You could hear some of what he was saying echoed back several seconds later. So I think it took him a while to get the rhythm and the response of the crowd, but he clearly drew strength from it. We're watching now on the platform itself folks who don't want to leave.